We just approved the March 7th meeting minutes. Now the October 18th. Any changes or to those?
They look good to me, Jeff. And guys, could you put the agenda up on the screen?
Motion to approve the minutes.
I do have something about the minutes,
All right.
and on the speckled trout, I seem to recall, and somebody can check a recording maybe, that I made a statement that the reason that there are so many speckled trout in the bay, or one of the reasons, is that the recreational fishery has taken such a big voluntary reduction in their harvest limits, or in their bag limits and size limits. And we did that, I mean, and after thinking about it, and which I didn't say the last time, part of the reason that we did that was to stop the roller coaster effect on the stocks when we have any kind of bad event, winter kill or something, and the stocks go down. This allows them to come back up quicker and more reliably. And I think that's a big reason why we have so many speckled trout in the bay. And recreational fishermen took this cut voluntarily and are trying to be conservation minded to build the stocks up so they have a better fishery. And I still don't think we should do anything with the commercial fishery increasing it, but that's another discussion for later.
All right, Tom, I appreciate your encouraging statement there. Any other questions or motions about the October 18th meeting minutes? Okay, motion to approve.
I make a motion to approve.
I second it.
Okay, great. Okay, tonight we've got it, well, sorted out as one thing to address, but we've got another speckled trout assessment as well, which is good to hear. CBS management, we'll start with, I think Shannon Madson's going to give us that.
Nope, today we're gonna have Alexa. Alexa is our black sea bass coordinator, so she is going to go through the recreational management measure changes for black sea bass. But I'm here to help her answer any questions if we need.
All right, you got the floor.
Thank you. So today we're talking about recreational measures for black sea bass for 2023. Some of you, I'm sure, already aware, yesterday at their commission meeting, the February black sea bass season was approved. So that'll run February 1st through 28th. When that season is over and accounting is in, so probably late March, we'll come back to the committee to ask them how we want to pay back the landings from February. But that's going to be sometime in the future. What we're talking about now is coast-wide, we're required to take a 10% reduction for black sea bass for recreational. So I wanted to bring to the committee and the public how we want to take that reduction. So let me get into some background. How we get at the 10% starts with the specifications process. The stock assessment comes to, uses the data, gives us what's called an overfishing limit. That's reduced by some amount of scientific uncertainty to an acceptable biological catch, the ABC. The ABC is then divided by the commercial recreational allocation into a commercial annual catch limit and a recreational annual catch limit, which is what we're talking about today. The recreational annual catch limit is then reduced by some estimate of recreational discards for the year, and finally we arrive at a recreational harvest limit. So in the past, when we've been doing management measures, trying to see how our harvest lines up we'd compare annual harvest to the recreational harvest limit. But last year, the ASMFC and the Mid-Atlantic Fishery Management Council went through a process to establish a harvest control rule. And the final result of the harvest control rule, at least for the next few years, they're kind of trying it out, is the percent change option. So option one, or step one, is similar to how it was done in the past. Determine if the RHL for the upcoming year is above, below, or within the confidence interval of the most recent MRIP harvest estimate. So we're not saying it has to reach the exact MRIP harvest estimate. We kind of assume some range around that to see if the harvest estimate is approximately where the recreational harvest limit is. But then we come to step two. We compare the biomass to the target level. So this is something we heard about a lot last year. People saying, why do we have to take these reductions when there's so many black sea bass out? So the step one is modified by step two. We look at where black sea bass are in their biomass target. We can be 150% above the biomass target, between 100 and 150%, or below the target. Then we can use those to compare to a table. And that table says if step one is this, if step two is this, then the percent we need to change by, reduce, liberalize, or stay status quo is this. So this is harvest estimates compared to the recreational harvest limit in the last few years. See, 2022 harvest estimate isn't yet available, but there are some new models that predict what 2023's harvest estimate would be under the current management measures. So if nothing changed from 2022, we'd be estimated to land 7.93 million pounds of black sea bass, which is well above the recreational harvest limit of 6.74 million pounds. So if we did the old version, the old process, we said we need to reduce the harvest estimate to or below the RHL, we'd have to reduce by about 15%. But using the percent change option, we arrive at 10%, because the RHL is lower than the lower bound of expected harvest. So even if we say MRIP is very uncertain, we were still fishing well above where we should have been. And then black sea bass is over 150% of the target biomass. They're doing really well. So that's how we arrive at that 10% reduction. So the management we use with black sea bass is conservation equivalency. This is a single set of coastwide measures can be replaced by state or region specific measures, because not every state has the same fishery. A good day of fishing in Massachusetts will look very different than a good day of fishing in Virginia. In regional conservation equivalency, which we use for black sea bass, states within a region propose consistent management measures. And then staff, usually state agency staff on the technical committee, calculate measures needed to reduce harvest within that region by the given amount. So this is kind of a flowchart of how that conservation equivalency process is working for black sea bass this year. The Summer Flounder, Scup, and Black Sea Bass Board of ASMFC and the Mid-Atlantic Council voted on some set of non-preferred coastwide measures. This is, if every state had the same measures, these would reduce harvest to that 10%. But Board and Council voted to allow conservation equivalency. So every region can propose a conservation equivalency proposal. If a state or region did not submit a proposal, or a proposal was not approved, they would be required to enact the precautionary default measures. For black sea bass this year, it would be a 16-inch minimum size limit, a 2-fish bag limit, and a June 1st to August 31st season. If the state or region further refused to enact those measures, they'd be found out of compliance and would have their recreational fishery closed. So obviously we want to end here. We want, I'm currently working with Delaware, Maryland, and North Carolina to come up with some proposal that will be acceptable to the anglers in our region. So the way this process works, right now, the regions are submitting conservation equivalency proposals. Like I said, I've been working with the other TC members to come up with options that might work for us. The technical committee will review the proposal and hopefully recommend them. The Summer Flounder, Scup, and Black Sea Bass Board will review the regional proposals and the TC's recommendations and establish final measures. At which point ASMFC will certify to the National Marine Fisheries Service that proposals will achieve that 10% reduction. That takes us to probably late April, where the VMRC will vote on new recreational measures at their commission meeting. At that point, we should have the estimated reduction we'll have to take for the February harvest. So we'll have both of those going into that April commission meeting. So here are some preliminary options I've been working on with the other TC members. These are not final options, but they should be in the ballpark of where we're going. So right now, the current measures are 13-inch minimum size limit, a 15 fish bag limit, and a season from May 15th to December 11th. So last year, I know the committee said they didn't want to increase the minimum size limit any more than the half-inch we did. We don't want to go to 13.5. So we tried to keep that constant for our options. And then the bag limit, I know some people said they'd rather have a lower bag limit and be able to fish more days. But honestly, so few people get their full bag limit that we got very little bang for our buck reducing the bag limit. So we said, let's keep it at 15. And I just noticed option 3 says 13 fish. That should be 15. We'll get there. So for option 1, if we only took reduction from the end of the season, we would have to shorten the season to end October 16th. So that would be May 15th to October 16th. This is because there was a lower average daily harvest rate at the end of the year. Option 2 would have a late July closure. So it would be open May 15th to July 15th, and then close July 16th to July 26th, and reopen July 27th, and then we can extend it to the end of the year. Option 3, again, that's supposed to be a 15 fish bag limit. That we have a early October closure. So open May 15th to September 31st, close October 1st through October 11th, and then reopen October 12th, again through the end of the year, December 31st. So how we arrived at those options, you can see here. This is our average daily harvest rate for the southern region. So as high as that light blue bar is the southern region. And then I did include the dark blue bars that tell you where Virginia lands on these. So you can see at the end of the year, the average daily harvest is fairly low. So we would have to close more days to get to that 10%. So the late July closure and the early October closure, we've run so far, those options 2 and 3. Those are the time periods with the highest average daily harvest limit, average daily harvest. So we can close fewer days to achieve 10%. So that's all the slides I have. I'm looking for input from the committee, from the public on what of these options are agreeable, what options are not agreeable. If there's any options not on this table, for example, you want an August closure, that's something I can take back to the other members of our region and put into the model to see how many days we'd have to close. Again, we'll be consulting an Excel spreadsheet that has these numbers so you can see like August, early August, also fairly high daily harvest. So that might mean a little more days closed than that late July, but fewer days than a late August. So I'm looking for feedback on these options and ideas if there are any other options people would want to see.
Hey Alexa, this is Alex. Is there any reason why you didn't look at cutting it from the beginning, so starting a little bit later than May 15th, since harvest estimates are much higher in that wave than towards the end of the season?
So I know in the past, when we've closed for the February season, the committee has said there's fewer things to fish for in that late May period before June 1st. And some of the other states said they were also not interested in that early season closure.
Oh, because the way I see it, it looks like there's a lot more to fish for in the spring than there would be at the end of December, but maybe some other committee members have something to say about that.
And this is Mike. In the past, we our committee member that was the head boat charter boat captain out of Rudy Inlet gave us some of the best input. Is he here?
I am. Anyway, I would go with option 2, and I would also say, yes, absolutely, do not mess with our May season. We definitely need it open May 15th. And depending on what happens in February, I would try to see if we could tack on those days, either, extend, right? So typically in the past, we paid it back early June, like the first 2 weeks or first 20 days or whatever in June. So hopefully my guess would be if we could tack a few days maybe on the beginning of that July closure, and then maybe tack a few days on the end of that July closure, and just have a bigger closure where we're taking our 10% to pay back for our February. Of course, we would just have to wait and see how many days that comes to, but that would be, because in the middle of the summer like that in July, I would rather take it then than in early October. And that, to me, that would be ideal. It's the fewest days closure that we have to take, and definitely I would go with option 2, and then see if we could tack on our February season behind and in front of that.
Thanks for reminding me, Skip. Yes, we're not interested in having 3 open periods. So, I know when we bring the February days to the committee, we will be looking to have it on the end or beginning of that mid-season closure, if that is what we go with.
That would be
What,
great. And actually, if you could, I'm sure you'll give us a couple options, but if you could do maybe even a few before it and a few after it, but just make sure it's one lump sum close rather than open, closed, open, closed.
Yep. In that late July period, what would you pivot to fishing for?
Well, the only thing we're catching sea bass on that time of the year really is our deep drop trips. We're, as far as the rest of it, the normal, we're half day fishing, for croaker. We do have a flounder trip last year where we did catch a lot of sea bass, but they're basically targeting flounder, so that of course they're going to run into that, but that every year is different. Typically in the summertime, unless you're offshore, you're not really going to run into a lot. Now last summer was different, and sea bass fishing was really good wherever you went.
Yeah, that sounds good. Thanks, Skip. Anyone else from the committee want to weigh in?
I just, sounds good to me. If that's, this is Skip's area and I think we should go with that if that makes them happy. So I'm happy with option 2.
Mike Lightfoot's happy with what Skip says, option 2.
Hey, Mark Sanford here. I agree with Skip.
I agree with Skip.
And it sounds too easy. Do you need a formal vote?
If the committee would like to vote, they can.
Motion to approve Skip.
And I
I'll
guess I
second that motion.
need that.
Perhaps a motion to recommend option 2.
I'll second. I'll second.
All in favor,
That
raise your
motion would
hand.
have to come from the committee and not one of the staff, so I'll make that motion.
Thanks, Tom.
I'll second the motion.
Jeff, if you want to, this is Pat. I mean, you can ask if there's any opposition to it, and if there's not, the motion carries by consent.
Before we do the final vote, do we want to go to the public?
You should do that too.
Yep, we can. We have one person. Bill Pappas, 1 second. Let me get him unmuted.
I thought we weren't having the public in this, so I noticed not to share. Okay, that's great.
Bill, you should be unmuted.
Oh, I just wanted to hop in and just say I would support with option 2 as well. Skip, good call.
Thank you.
All right.
All right, back to the committee then.
I guess we've got that settled.
We do have one call-in attendee, so we're not going to know if that person wants to unmute themselves. So Summers, we might want to unmute him and just double check to see if they want to speak up.
Perfect. Yes, I have unmuted him on my end, but he's gonna or they are going to have to do. I think it's *6 if they want to talk.
Yep, so we have one call-in user. So if you've called in on the phone and you do want to speak up, it's a 757-672 number. We can't see your final part of your phone number, but if you would like to make a comment, you can hit *6 on your phone and unmute yourself. All right, hearing nothing. Turning it back over to you, Jeff. Jeff, we do, when Josh says not to share the committee agenda, the only reason he does that is so that the panelist password isn't out for the public. We have the public in the attendee section and the panelists in the other section. So there's always going to be public invited to our FMAC meetings. They're always public, just to clarify.
Glad to hear that.
Yep.
All right. It's pretty much settled, isn't it? Option 2. Does staff need any more from us?
All right, if nothing else on black sea bass, we do have a quick update. I'm turning it over to Josh for that.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for coming in and taking some time out of your day. I'm just gonna really briefly give you guys an update about speckled trout. This is just piggybacking off of what we discussed a bit on October 18th meeting. So the stock assessment, the joint stock assessment between North Carolina and Virginia, this is kind of separate from Atlantic States, or ASMFC, for speckled trout. This was recently completed. The period for the data included data from 1991 to 2019. A new model was used in the stock assessment, and it was intended to reduce some sources of uncertainty in the data, allow for more realistic mortality and growth assumptions, and then also account for cold stunt events that do take effect in Virginia and North Carolina some winters, and then do not account for, then take cold stunt events out if they do not take effect those particular years. The peer review of the stock assessment did take place in August of last year, and then the final report was released last October. So the QR code on the bottom right, if you guys want to pull up your phone, it brings you right to it. I did also send a direct link that's on the bottom. In the email, in the particular stock assessment, it is rather long, but you would be able to go right to the executive summary. I did note that page in the committee agenda, but the main takeaways from the stock assessment was this joint stock was not overfished, and overfishing is occurring though between this joint stock. So that's really the main takeaway from this. There was a joint North Carolina Virginia meeting this past afternoon, earlier today, that we were a part of. And really the only thing that has kind of been discussed is North Carolina, how they are going to kind of go about getting some public input. But really, what we know from Virginia, just talking between myself, Shanna, and Brooke, is that all the data is going to be taken into consideration with any future work that is done with this stock within our state. We do know that North Carolina's landings are different than Virginia, and we do know that Virginia's recreational and commercial landings are also different. So that's really all I have to update on you on this particular stock assessment, and I'm happy to take any questions if anybody wants to know a bit more.
Yeah, Mark Sanford here. I got a question for you. It says overfishing is occurring. Is that based on release mortality? Is that what their main concern is by any chance?
So a main concern, not necessarily, but release mortality is part of it. So overfishing has to do with anything that's really taking fish out of the population.
Okay, I gotcha. All right, thank you. And I guess I got to follow up to this. You said there was a great difference in the commercial fishery in Virginia versus the commercial fishery in North Carolina.
So there's differences between the rec and commercial fisheries and landings between.
Okay, can you tell me what the recreational harvest is in the state of Virginia specifically?
The exact number I would not be able to pull off the top of my head, but I could get that for you.
Yeah, just kind of ballpark it. I mean,
for the landings.
Yeah, for recreational.
Well, Mark, I don't want to get too into the weeds with this because this is definitely something that FMAC is going to discuss further later.
Right.
We're just trying to give you guys the best, like a quick update on this, since our focus today was black sea bass.
Right.
But do not worry. We will start to tackle this issue with more rigor now that the stock assessment is complete. So all of that landings information should be contained in that stock assessment document.
Right.
But once we dig into more Virginia specific landings, all of that sort of thing is going to come before this committee. We just wanted to give you a quick update today.
Right. And my question to you, I mean, basically Virginia and North Carolina are separate. And there's a big difference in the amount that the commercial basically land in the state of Virginia. And we've been catching our quota up very, very quickly in the last 4 years. And, you know, the recreational harvest is, the number I heard was over 800,000 versus 51,000 pounds. And there's definitely a big difference in that. And I'm thinking
Look,
down the road.
I know definitely where your standpoint is coming from.
Yeah.
Your point is taken, but I do not want to get too far into the weeds of that road right now, because again, any management action that Virginia decides to do as a result of the stock assessment on the joint stock, all of that information will be taken into consideration, and we will not do anything without consulting this committee with more depth and detail first. I promise that.
Okay. All right. That answers my question.
Yeah, don't worry. I got you.
All right. Thank you.
We're not doing anything without you guys. Promise.
So I'm seeing that Suzanne Music did put a question into the chat. It says, what number are they using for the release mortality for the recreational sector in Virginia? So in the stock assessment, they used was there a published the published release mortality, and then from the number of fish released from there, they were able to determine how many fish were, lost due to release. I believe it was somewhere estimated around 15%. It would be the exact number is listed in the stock assessment though.
Any other questions? I'd like to go back to black sea bass for a moment, if you don't mind.
Sure. What do you want to talk about?
Can you tell me how much the scientific uncertainty contributed to the number of allowable catch?
Not off the top of my head. I know ASMFC materials have a table with the full, what was the OFL, the overfishing limit, what was the acceptable biological catch. It'll be in there. I can send that out to you if you're interested.
Appreciate it.
It's something I believe the Science and Statistical Committee decides upon, saying we think this level of risk is acceptable. So I think it can be specific to the species, but I know they have like a general rule they go with how much risk they want to take.
Just a little bit more on that. Yeah, the SSC has to make those determinations based on Magnuson. So there are very specific rules for jointly managed species like black sea bass, which is jointly managed between the Atlantic States Marine Fisheries Commission and NOAA. So those scientific uncertainties are a necessary reduction that the SSC must calculate in order to get to the RHL and the commercial quotas.
Any input from the public on what we've done tonight?
I don't see any additional chats asking to speak.
If we are done with public comment, I do just have an update for this committee. We are going to be opening 2 more commercial seats for FMAC. If you guys remember, there was some confusion late last year. There was a person who had been nominated to FMAC, had turned in an application for the committee, but actually did not wish to be part of the committee. And that was a commercial seat. So now we're kind of flip-flopped again, where we have a heavy group of recreational folks. I think we've got 7 recreational guys and 5 commercial guys. So we are going to once again post on Facebook and our website that we are looking for 2 more commercial representatives for the committee. So if you folks know anyone that would be interested, please let them know. We'll try to get those postings up in the very near future. But we just want to make sure that we round out the committee like we were looking to do previously. The other quick announcement that I do have for the group is, and sorry, Pat, if I'm stomping on your toes here, but the Fisheries Division has lost a deputy chief. If you'll notice, usually it's myself and Adam Kenyon and Pat here as your chiefs and deputies from the Fisheries Division. Adam has moved on to become chief of the Shell Fisheries Division. So you are down a deputy. Either fortunately or unfortunately for you, depending on how you feel, you are stuck with me as your deputy. I'm the one who's been running FMAC for the past few years anyway. So I am still here and I intend to be here for a while, but just so you're aware, there's one name that's missing. We wish Adam all the best, and hopefully we'll have a new deputy signed on within the next few months.
Shannon,
Yes.
Mark Sims here. I just recently got my Class A guide license and my boat license for charters. I don't know how that affects our mix, but I just wanted you to be aware of it.
No, you're good, Mark. No problem at all. We've actually already got you down, I believe, as a recreational representative, so you're good.
Okay.
This is Mike Lightfoot. Could you give us a rundown of what the commission approved for the commercial sea bass in their meeting this week?
For the commercial sea bass, we didn't approve anything for the commercial sea bass.
That wasn't on the agenda? Huh.
No. So yesterday, the thing that Alexa brought up at the beginning of this presentation, back in October, we discussed opening the recreational February black sea bass fishing season. That's what we heard yesterday at the commission meeting, so that we could open the February black sea bass season in the next few days. That went before the commission season. There were no changes to the commercial season that were discussed at the commission meeting.
Okay, so what was done at the commission on the recreational, did that have any impact to what we approved today?
No. So back in October, we discussed opening that February season, and the FMAC was in support of opening that February season. So the only thing that the commission discussed yesterday was opening the February season. Like Alexa talked about in the beginning of the presentation, what'll happen is we have to essentially pay back whatever landings come out of that February recreational season. And then as Skip and Alexa were discussing, we will probably take that out of the July chunk that we were discussing for this 10% reduction. This is just recreational. So anything that happened yesterday was things that we previously discussed in October with FMAC that were cleared with you, and anything that happens in the future at the commission meetings are coming out of this discussion that we just had today.
And once we have those final numbers for the recreational February season, and we can estimate how many days we'll need to adjust the season, that will come back to the committee.
Okay, thanks. I got another question. Did the commercial quota for our striped bass go up just like a teeny weeny percentage? Did I get just like a few more pounds from the previous year?
I mean, I think if somebody had dropped out, you may have gotten a little bit more.
But overall, no, there was no changes.
Yeah, but I don't think there was any changes. I mean, if somebody drops out, there'd be a little bit more bigger piece of the pie, but I don't think anybody has.
Oh, wow. So if somebody drops out, and just turns in their quota, then everybody else divides up theirs. Is that correct?
If it's voluntarily given up, but most people don't do that, they sell it.
Okay, so the only way that I would have gotten a little bit more though is if somebody turned theirs in.
Yeah, I don't know. We'd have to look at that. I mean, how much more was it? Just, you know.
Oh, like, let me think, 1% maybe, a 0.5%.
Hey, Mike, this is Jill. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you, Jill.
Hey, so it probably was just a rounding error, a rounding difference. We have the same exact quota for 23 as we did for 22. So sometimes with just the rounding, the way we round the quotas, somebody will get 1 pound up or 1 pound less, because we can't give somebody a 1/2 pound. So that's probably just what it was.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Mark, I see you have your hand up. Did you have something you needed to say? Mark Symes. Okay, perfect. Go ahead, Jeff.
It's already been asked.
Pat, I saw your hand go up or your mute go off. Did you have something to add? Pat Gear, did you have something to add?
No, I don't. I'm just, no, I thought somebody else was, and I was clicking on the name. I don't have anything, no.
All right, is there anything else to discuss?
Yeah, just, Jeff, this is Mike. May I say something, please?
Please.
As I mentioned before we started the meeting, there's at the legislature in Richmond now, there's a bill that is going to add $4 million to grant money via VIMS and I guess VMRC for blue catfish. And I think that it's going to get funded and it's to be divided between commercial watermen and processors. And I think it's going to provide a lot more opportunity to push catching these blue catfish. They're just proliferating and they have to have a significant impact in our crab population and everything else we have in the rivers. Can we add that blue catfish and where we are with regulations and catch totals by fishery? Like how much is the electric shocking sector catching? How much are they catching in pound nets, trot lines, etc. at one of our upcoming in-person FMAC meetings, please?
Are you just looking for kind of an overall overview of what's happening with blue catfish?
Yes, but I think by then we may have the money out for the grants. And I and some of the other commercial guys that I talked to may be asking for some changes in the blue catfish size limits, and maybe a few other things.
Okay, well, let's wait and see what ends up coming out of General Assembly. And then if you have suggestions specifically to what you might want to see changed, then we can cater the presentation and what's being discussed specific to what you're looking for at that point.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks, Mike.
Just so everybody knows, that's Senate Bill 897 being brought forward by Senator Stewart. And Mike, the last time I saw, we're not getting any of that money where you sit on a group that's gonna, a committee that might have to, delve out money. So we may be on a committee to decide who gets what.
That's correct. That's how I understand it.
Motion to adjourn.
Second that motion.
Sounds great, everyone. Thank you all so much for being here. We definitely appreciate all of your input. We will keep you posted on all of this as it continues to develop. Obviously, like Alexa said, everything with black sea bass, we are working with our neighboring states, but we will obviously, just like we did last year when we discussed this, keep you guys abreast of the situation as we talk to them and as things go through ASMFC, and we'll be reporting back on this soon. So thank you all so much for being here tonight. We appreciate it.
Nice work, staff.
Good night. Thank you.
Thank
Right.
you all. Thanks, Shannon. Thanks, Pat. Thanks, Jeff.
I agree. Thanks, Steph. Thank you, guys.
Welcome.